Robert Kiyosaki is in the news. He was on the front page of Yahoo's email and trending many different places over the last few days because he, quote, said on one of his channels, which he's been saying for literally 25 plus years, so I don't know how it's like a new thing, but Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki says he's $1.2 billion in debt because if I go bust, quote, if I go bust, the bank goes bust. Not my problem. Now, on surface, this might seem, for people that aren't all there, it might seem a little shocking. Like, oh, what is he talking? Are you kidding me? You piece of garbage. You have to understand, I've listened to thousands of hours of Robert Kiyosaki. I've read all his books. He's one of my biggest mentors. He's the reason that 15 years ago, I started to understand the uniparty. The red versus blue was not what it seemed. It's actually the red and blue versus you. It's not red versus blue. It's the state versus you. That's what he really helped me get into that, or educated me after, once I saw the parties bailing each other out and helping each other in the 08, 09 crash and starting to bail out and helping each other. So he's the one that really led me down that road and helped me realize that the money was broken, that we don't have a money, we have a currency. It's not backed by anything. Money has to be a store of value. Money has to be backed, the paper has to be backed by gold and silver, or it has to be Bitcoin, backed by energy. So energy in either way. You have to mine it with electricity using computers, Bitcoin, or you have to mine it and pull it out of the ground, silver or gold. You have to use that equal amount of energy to transfer it to someone else who's doing something of that same equal value to you. So that's the equal trade. The same amount of energy or electricity it's being transferred has to be that product or service that you're giving is going to be traded for an equal amount in gold and silver or equal amount of Bitcoin. So that's the problem with printing of currency. They're just printing it out of nowhere, stealing time and energy from other people through inflation. That inflation is how it's stolen. So that at work, the energy has to come somewhere. You can't just print it out of nowhere. It doesn't just grow on trees. That work has to be taken from something or someone. And that's taken from human beings through inflation, the higher prices. So we all bear the cost, socializing the losses. So there's nuance to this. The banks do take the brunt of the loss. What he's saying, just like he says savers are losers. Savers are losers. Savers are losers for two reasons. One, because people are saving in dollars that are worth nothing. They're liabilities. They're not assets. They lose value over time. So they're a liability. That's why people lose, because they're saving a liability. They're saving into disparity. They're saving into debt eventually. They're saving into a declining net worth. Not smart. But also, savers are losers because people aren't thinking. They're not getting outside themselves and thinking outside the box. So that's why he says these things. Also, again, if he goes bust, Robert Kiyosaki's job is to shift people's context. It's to help them understand the world that they're living in, and to shift the context you have to rattle the cage, you have to use pattern interrupts. So things like this, if I go bust, the bank goes bust, not my problem. That's true, because the banks are on the hook for that property, and they're the ones that lent out that cash. They're the ones that took your cash, mom and pop's cash, pensions, 401ks, endowments, took that cash and went and invested it with a Robert Kiyosaki. So the pension, the banks or whoever it is have to answer to those endowments or pensions or funds or what have you. So they end up getting bailed out, things like that, because that's how the game works. That's the FDIC lays that out, the Federal Reserve. Read The Creature from Jekyll Island, G. Edward Griffin. He lays this out beautifully. So he is not wrong. He's trying to shift your context and break you out of your pattern interrupt and light your brain on fire and say, what is he talking about? What is he doing? But he's right. The bigger you are, the harder it is for you to be taken down. And this is where I have the problem, though. This is the problem, because he's not wrong. He's right in everything he says. But two things or multiple things can be true at one time. And I do believe that holding opposing opinions in your head at the same time is a level of genius. The problem is capitalism only works if you have a solid monetary base built on actual time and energy that's not corrupted. Capitalism doesn't work in this world we're in a broken monetary system, in a fiat debt-based monetary system. This is why capitalism is having so many problems. This is why people are so open to communism and collectivism, socialism, because capitalism is crumbling. And it's crumbling because of the currency. We don't have a money. Capitalism only works with money. You have to use money that actually stores value. It's the only way. Capital. If you have capital stored up, equity, then you can have capitalism. You can't have that in a debt-based system, in a currency that there's no equity there. It's just debt. Capitalism doesn't work on a debt-based system. We have this crony capitalism. We have this corporate capitalism. I've heard another word for it recently, but greed-based capitalism, whatever it is. I forget all these different terms people have come up with because they're trying to explain what's happening, and everyone understands it in different ways. So he's not wrong, but again, the problem is it doesn't. He's playing the game, so he's absolutely right, and he's just saying, well, get smarter. Get smarter. That's capitalism. Like, we need to figure this out. Be the banks. Fight them at their own game. That's true. That's a way to do it. However, in my experience, which is way less than his, but the last 15 years, as I built real estate teams and as I helped people invest, raised money, helped private money lenders, did investing on my own, not many people are going to do that. Not many people are going to invest with you, and even less people, very few people are actually going to go out and become a real estate investor and actually learn, take years and years to actually try and fail and learn, thousands of hours of reading and in YouTube videos and whatever. So I realized when I started understanding Bitcoin 5 years ago, oh my goodness, you have to fix the money. If you fix the money, you don't have to become a hedge fund manager. You don't have to be out the risk curve investing in Dogecoin and in these ridiculous altcoins and cryptos. You don't have to be becoming a Robert Kiyosaki and a real estate investor. And you can just be you. You can just be the person working a job at Macy's, right? Like, you can just work your job at McDonald's. You can just be a doctor. You can be a dentist. You can just be you. You can be working construction or skilled labor, skilled trades, and you can just save in Bitcoin, save a deflationary money or a neutral money, and save more than you spend each month, and you accrue purchasing power over time because there's a fixed supply. And the monetary premium continues to accrue to this as people sell other assets to put their wealth, their time and energy into Bitcoin. The network grows and the value grows. So your purchasing power grows as you hold Bitcoin. You can't do that in a debt-based, currency-based system. That's what helped me understand all this. Capitalism doesn't work in a debt-based system. It works in a capital-based system, an equity-based system. And you can only have that with a money that is fixed to energy and is finite. Finite energy and finite asset for finite time. I shouldn't say finite energy, but finite time on Earth that you have is the only equal trade is to a finite asset. Bitcoin for time, and time is Bitcoin. Unlike this debt-based system is fiat, which is infinite. So you're trading your finite time for an infinite liability. That does not seem like a smart trade to me. Please tell me if that's a smart trade or not. And hence why you see people getting poorer over time, because they continue to trade their finite time that they don't get any more of, and they trade it for an infinite liability. And then they wonder why they don't have cash to pay for their expenses, and everything keeps running away from them. So Robert's not wrong. What he's wrong about is not going all in on a neutral currency, a neutral money that is backed by energy. He is into Bitcoin. And again, it's not to say just go buy Bitcoin. It's the thought process I'm saying. Go study Bitcoin. And the thought process behind it is what we need to study and understand. Just like that, the whole world could change. If we chose to use a different money, psychologically understood, we are being screwed by our money. Politics isn't going to change that. And more articles and podcasts aren't going to change that. Campaigning's not going to change that. No law, regulation is going to change that. It's all in the same system. It's all encapsulated in the fiat system. You can't change the current reality or the current system by the current reality. You have to move outside that. You have to reimagine it and build a new system, which the Bitcoin ecosystem is a new governance set. It's a new monetary system being built outside of fiat. It's an equity-based system and based in equity and capital, and unlike the debt-based system. So Robert's right. I understand his nuance because I've just studied him for thousands of hours. Hopefully that sheds some light on what's going on here, but the importance of moving from that debt-based system to the equity-based system. If Robert goes bust, the bank goes bust. That's not his problem. It's the bank's problem, and that will get bailed out by all of us. So he's not wrong. We all can do it. Everyone can go do that. The problem is most people can't and most people won't. So what can we do to minimize the wealth gap? Well, if we just change the money we are using and went from a currency, the fiat government currencies, to a money, to Bitcoin, gold and silver don't work. They haven't worked for thousands of years. They were a store of value, but they don't work as a transactional money because they get centralized. They get honeypotted, it's called, into one location because you can't move it over space. instantaneously like you can Bitcoin. So it gets taken into a spot because it's heavy and you can't move it, and doesn't work at the speed of commerce. So it gets centralized, and they issue claim checks, and then they issue too many of them every single time, and then there's a bank run, and people realize, oh, you have issued too many claim checks, and prices are going up, and I want my real asset back, my gold and silver. And they're like, oh, we don't have enough, and then the bank collapses. And people lose their wealth, their assets. That's it. That doesn't happen with Bitcoin, or at least not nearly as easy. It could happen for a little bit, but it will get sniffed out, and people will start to understand, oh, I can't do that with Bitcoin because it can be audited instantaneously. It moves over the speed of light, final settlement instantaneously. So people will do it here and there. FTX kind of tried in a way, stuff like that. But you start learning very quickly. Bitcoin changes you. You don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. Appreciate you. Please share this out. Question everything is boldness, even the existence of God himself. Trust but verify what I'm saying. And this is not financial advice. It is freedom advice. I look forward to seeing you on the next one.